Board gender diversity has been on the political agendas for many governments, and also it has been on the strategic decisions for many corporations. Countries that adopted gender diversity promoting policies are like Norway, France, Italy, Spain, Malaysia. Of course, Norway leads the movement by adopting a quota for gender diversity that would reach 40% of the board seats. Among the region, we have UAE, which is the only country in the GCC that adopted a policy that would promote females on board seats. The nature of this topic is really multidisciplinary, as when we talk about it, we talk about many knowledge branches, mainly finance, governance, law, sociology, sociopolitics as well. It has been discussed broadly in the literature from many branches and many different perspectives. I would like to align certain findings that I would suggest that I found in the literature. Mainly, the results are mixed about the effect of these quotas on the performance of corporations, but we have a certain degree of agreement that females really enhance the performance of boards by their innate abilities. We have one survey study by Adams and Ferreira that surveyed a big sample of corporates and found an evidence that females increase the board performance or effectiveness by their because they have innate abilities like risk perception, better risk perception than their male counterparts, and they have also better attendance levels than males. But they highlighted that quotas would reduce the performance of a company in a context where the governance in this corporate is really good. Another evidence from Norway, which is recent evidence, that females increase the independence of the board, but too much of independence inside the board would affect the performance of the company. And of course, these studies, after this study in 2016, after the imposing of the quota in Norway, and the outcomes of this quota was addressed by this study. So now we may go to studies in emerging markets. Mainly, we have two aspects to consider in emerging markets, which are the weak institutional environment, and inside the institutions we have higher levels of ownership concentration, and this would affect the governance in the corporation itself. So board gender diversity in emerging markets had a positive effect on the governance and the board independence, which are really needed in the environment of emerging markets to enhance the performance of boards and the corporations themselves. How would board gender diversity or diversity at all affect performance is investigated by a study like Ararat 2015 in Turkey, where they found that that diversity affect the monitoring rules of the board by controlling the cash flow rights. This is linked to the concentrated ownership structure inside these institutions. However, board gender diversity was found to improve firm performance in emerging markets, but however, it reduces the market performance of the corporations. So the negative effect was investigated deeply. Why would board gender diversity firms with board gender diversified face a negative reaction or reduced valuation by the market by these studies? So the most important one and the recent one is Abdullah et al. 2016, where they found that mainly the negative market performance is because of the social perception, cultural perceptions towards females in leadership positions. And they analyzed the Malaysian context, inducing that the corporate, the diversified boards face a negative reaction from the public or from the investors because of these aspects, mainly the socio-cultural aspects. So concluding that socio-cultural perspective of board gender diversity quotas was addressed in the literature, but I couldn't find many studies talking about the contextual factors about the socio-political perspective, mainly the political environment where these corporations work, because it certainly would affect their performance. So I would argue that quotas would be a benefit for females in certain societies, not in all emerging markets, mainly because of the socio-political situation in each country and the role of governing elites in each country in enhancing and changing these social norms that or social misconceptions in the society. So I'm suggesting that quota laws may be beneficial in societies where governing elites have a greater role or influential role, and as well as we have to look at the economic perspective where the gender or female participation in the economy is reduced or it's not well presented or not reflecting the educational achievements by this female participation. So, of course, quota laws have people opposing it, and others are pro quota laws. So the people who are pro quota laws believe that it proves the descriptive representation of females, and it really proved the number of females occupying board seats all over the world. They also discussed the role model effect, where females, when they have a leadership position like board of directors, they play a role model for other females to progress in their careers, and it improves the aspirations for females also to improve in their careers and achieve enhanced achievements. It also improves the investment by women, where women really think about going to work, where they see a potential that they would achieve themselves. The anti-quota laws believes that it worsens allocation, so you wouldn't know where it. Maybe you put a female leader in the wrong position, or vice versa. It also reduces women incentives to invest, but reduces women incentives to invest in their careers as well, and it worsens attitudes. One example of that is when Pakistan they imposed a quota law, and they were faced by the negative social perceptions towards that, and the attitudes of other females was really worsened. So. Okay, when we talk about quota interactions, we need to when we talk about quota law, we need to take in consideration many factors affecting that. Mainly the socio-political situation, which plays an important role, and the role of governing elite in changing social norms as well, and the economic necessity for this law in the specific country. So the question here is, do we take quota law or not? So we need to develop a model where a conceptual model where to assign to know exactly what should we be looking at when proposing a quota law, mainly the firm level factors and the macro environmental factors like socio-political factors and the economic circumstances. And this is a proposed conceptual framework for my research, taking in consideration external factors like socio-political factors and economic factors like the female labor force and the number of it, and the internal factors, mainly firm-level factors like the level of corporate governance in each corporate and the ownership structure, and of course another factors to be looking at.
Thank you very much, Reem. Now, yes,
First of all, I congratulate you for choosing this topic.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so happy to see someone is leading and taking gender, because in this patriarchal society to lead this kind of issues, it's a bit tricky. First of all, I've seen a lot of emphasis on Norway. Norway, Norway, Norway. Hang on. Are you going to conduct your study, your data collection in Norway?
No.
All right. If no, then why you're emphasizing on Norway?
Because it leads the direction.
First
it
of
leads
all,
the way. Yeah.
I know it was leading the way.
Yeah.
First, when I started my PhD, I was talking about the quotas, about Norway. My ex-supervisor told me, then you have to travel to the Norway and conduct your study, because a lot of studies has been there. Even the European countries, still not all of them have signed for the quota. Still there is disagreement. So how are you going to conduct your study, first of all, here in Bahrain? This is, at the first place, you have to think about it, unless you want to go there. Secondly, if you're talking about the quotas, do you know what is it? It's a tool only. Yeah. So first of all, when I've started writing my thesis, I wrote 40 pages about the quotas. I've done an extensive study about 40 pages. You know, all of it has been eliminated, because quota is only a tool to enforce the law to allow women in the board, because women can't reach it, can't reach the board. And when you are putting a law and pushing women to be on the board, so not all of them are competent. So there is something called token women. Yeah. Tokenism, which is appointing uncompetitive women to be in this position. And you have to go into leadership style. Do you know that men are competitive and women are cooperative? Do you know about this? I've written 50 pages literature review about leadership. All of it has been eliminated. You have to study it from all perspectives. When you talked about Malaysia, oh, I was delighted, because now you are narrowing the cultures. Norway and Bahrain, it doesn't work. But now you have to look at cultures which have something similar to Bahrain, if you are planning to do it here. And are you planning to do it quantitative or qualitative?
Are
You
you
have to-
planning to let me answer?
So I'm just telling you, if you, yeah, but if you are talking about numbers and you're talking about feminist study,
I'm starting to forget your points.
Yeah.
Let me answer. Okay, first of all,
Okay, can you
and-
please answer because
yeah,
we don't
I
have
took
time.
Norway. I took Norway because it's a natural experiment, so it's no way to ignore it. It's a natural experiment, and it's the most extremist experiment that they imposed 40%, which is really high. Second, I'm planning to imply this study in all GCC. So I'm taking the factors. Really, I would compare between Norway and other countries like Malaysia, for example, because it's a similar context, where they documented a negative reaction from the investors towards these stuff. So comparing these societies would really be beneficial. But Norway still exists because it's a natural experiment, and I can't ignore it.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, yeah. Go.
Because it's a debate, so I'd want to make a further research. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
go
a
ahead,
debate.
yeah.
What kind of proxies are you going to use to see how women interact in a board? So how are you measuring the effects, or are you measuring the fact that there are more women and how they interact if you cannot be in the board? So are you using, have you thought of which kind of proxies are you going to use to measure
You mean quantitative or
Yes,
qualitative?
quantitative.
Yeah, it has been done in the literature quantitatively. Most of the studies are quantitative studies. If you were talking about something else, another issue like about equality, you may take the qualitative. You want to talk more about it. So mainly in the literature, it's quantitative. Each one of these variables has
Some proxies or whatever.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
ever thought about that? Okay,
yeah.
so you are, okay. So
Yeah.
we should talk during the break maybe
Yeah,
about this.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Fantastic.
I only have one very quick feedback because I actually read your paper before your presentation and I thought it was a really good paper. So the feedback I'm going to say is you did a very good critical review of the literature. What you could do is you could provide a table to summarize the muddy empirical evidence gathered from all different nations and different cultural contexts. Then you could show the reader that, for example, in Norway or in certain country where gender equality is better exercised, the quota might have a more positive impact compared to those countries who are a bit lacking behind in terms of gender equality. The quota might not have always a positive impact. Then in a way, you are using the empirical evidence directly collected from literature review to show your reader where the future direction is. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you, dear. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Reem. Thank you. Due to time constraint, we're going to close this session. Thank you.